From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the state of client acquisition. This is your host, Michael Bohannes. This episode is from a LinkedIn Live I did with David Rapalski, who's a marketing consultant in Poland. He's working with law firms. And it's on the topic of live streaming and how live streaming is completely underused in B2B. We talk about the concept of parasocial interaction, which is that feeling of familiarity you have with a celebrity and why that's particularly powerful in the area of live streaming. And we go into quite a bit of theory in the first half, but the second half is all value, and we discuss best practices for live streaming and what you can do if you don't have much of an audience yet, and many other topics that are applicable for the small B2B CEO and solopreneur. So you absolutely need to be doing video. That message must have arrived by now, but live streaming is just another level above that. And it can really add a great dose of interactivity if you compare it with just video. So take a listen, see if there's anything worthwhile for you considering adding live streaming into your portfolio of means of communication with your audience. So without any further ado, let's go straight into this episode. Cool. Awesome. So I'm really excited to be talking to you about the topic of live streaming. The other day we were talking, you engaged considerably on one of my live streams, and I had a couple of questions for you, and you gave me some very interesting tips, especially about the topic of parasocial interaction. So I think maybe if you first could give a bit of an intro, what you do, and then let's dive straight into the topic of parasocial interaction and what it means for live streaming.
Okay, I'm basically, I guess I would call myself a marketeer or marketing enthusiast, or maybe a communication enthusiast. I operate my own consultancy, specifically targeted at legal marketing, but basically a passion project of mine, and it's something that I do. I wouldn't say I do it professionally, but I do it more as a hobby, is helping consult friends, family, close ones, people identify who I think maybe have like a little bit of charisma, a little bit of talent, to help them with video production and live streaming in general. So this is kind of what my background is.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the effect of parasocial interaction. I have to look at my notes here. It still doesn't roll off the tongue. Is this essentially the same as like whatever every stalker experiences at the beginning of their stalking journey?
It is, yes. It's frankly, that's what it is. So basically a parasocial relationship, if you want to put it very simply, it's the illusion of friendship with a public persona. Okay, so it's basically having this bond with a person that you're not. They basically, you perceive this person to be your friend, but they don't even know you exist. Right. This originated this first concept originated in the 1950s. I don't think it's a coincidence that probably this was around the time when you first have, at least in the US, you first had these really mega televised stars: Elvis Presley, James Dean, Marilyn Monroe. So this was first being studied and discussed from kind of a mass media and communications perspective, in an academic setting. And I think you could say that it really took off as a psychological study in the 1980s, and here we are today.
Okay.
But of course, these relationships existed way before there was a television, radio. People would bond with political figures, gods or deities. So it's a similar sort of thing.
Yeah. But the reason why we started talking about this was where we discussed what is so unique about live streaming here, because any kind of parasocial interaction is predicated on the idea that there simply is someone who is broadcasting to a mass audience, and I feel a certain kinship with them, and they don't know I exist. And there's this imbalance of let's say, power relationship here, where they don't know me, but I know them very well. And that is essentially, this could be traced even further back, well before television, right? You could be a fan of Mozart, right? You could have seen Mozart perform, and then you develop this fan relationship with him. And of course, he doesn't know who you are. So what is so unique about streaming specifically that it transcends this, or that it even exacerbates this? You said in relationship to this, you said as far as gaming is concerned, live streaming games, Twitch phenomenon, that it's not about the game, it's about the gamer. Can you explain that?
Okay, so what happens is you see this in basically the largest Twitch communities, or even small ones, is that you have a person who's playing a game, but in fact they're a very charismatic personality, or they have something unique about them. And what happens is they develop a sort of cult following where people are tuning into them, and developing these relationships because of various reasons. I mean, the two big ones when you talk about parasocial relationships are this kind of ultra fan stalker thing where you kind of maybe develop a romantic relationship or some extremely strong bond with the person. And the other is self projection. So you project yourself onto that influencer. You say, this person seems a lot like me. I am connecting with them. So these are the two ways that it happens. So I think, yes, I mentioned that it's because it happens in gaming. It happens on Twitch, which is primarily a gaming platform, although there are many other types of content broadcasts on there. But you can see it you could see it. I mean, people get attached to sports athletes, singers, artists, anything like this. So,
I think so. It feels like there are two factors that are concurring here. First of all, is two factors that are making live streaming so particularly powerful for parasocial interaction. One is the fact that it's at the same time as I'm watching, right? It's a completely different thing watching a movie star in a movie where you see it has been produced in the past and I see them, I still can admire them, but there's not this moment of immediate bonding at the same time. The second element is, of course, that they are, theoretically at least, responsive to my input. So
yes.
I can say something, I can ask them a question, and if I'm lucky, they will pick me and answer my question.
Exactly. And this is part of the projection because you may have an audience. I was watching one of the most popular Twitch streamers this morning. He had an audience of 50,000 people. Obviously, he's not going to respond to every person, but just being this, it's this projection where, oh my gosh, he responded to that one person. I could be the next.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that's one thing. So and also I think what also changes it's the medium, because when I'm one of the viewers of the person with the 50,000 people, this person is using the same platform that I could use for my live streaming tomorrow. So it is that could be me thing. So there's even more of a kinship. Whereas if I watch a movie star on the silver screen, there's this disconnectedness of the medium. I've never been on the silver screen. I've never had a movie of mine projected on a cinema screen. But this is something that I could use tomorrow, and I could have that too. Do you think that plays a role as well?
Absolutely. It's the accessibility. Yeah, it's the accessibility, being able to, you can, you envision yourself in their shoes, and also because you can sit there and chat, it's developing this relationship. It's something that plays into our society now. It's like this instant gratification.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So this is pretty well known, and I would like to direct the conversation towards B2B now. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty well known now in the world of B2C, in the world of gaming especially, but also any kind of celebrity who is, for example, doing some Facebook Live where they say, ask me anything, or any kind of
Instagram stories, yeah.
Instagram stories and the like, right? So this phenomenon is clear, but what have you seen in B2B? Are people not using it enough? Are people not taking advantage of it? What do you think is missing in B2B?
So I think exactly that people are not taking advantage of it. And I think it's because I think people haven't really had an imagination for how to utilize it. And I think that's the big thing that I would struggle with too, is what kind of applications can we put I mean, what kind of content can we put on live streaming? So I think this is one thing. Um, and I think that the why should businesses consider live streaming is I think that this ability to interact with the audience instantaneously is incredibly powerful, as you know, we've talked about before, to build this community and relationship. So I think it's something that just isn't being tapped into yet.
I think it's just too new for B2B people to leverage it. Also, I think that could be the issue of they've tried it, for example, once or twice, and they haven't had much of an audience. Not many people came. I think that can be quite discouraging. Whereas somebody who's a B2C star, for example, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, someone will show up, right? So there will be some kind of interaction. And based on the feedback that they're getting, they can change and adjust. However, if you do a live stream and there's no viewers, and then after all, you don't really hear what people wanted to hear more of, I think that can be quite discouraging.
I understand that, but the thing about building that's the catch to the live stream is what makes it unique is that interactivity with the audience, but it's like the double-edged sword if you don't have that. So you have to start somewhere, and I would just recommend people to be persistent, be consistent. If we look back to the examples of people on Twitch, gamers, there are people that spent 10 years building their audience to get to a point where they're actually be able to generate income to make a living off streaming games. So it's something that you have to be diligent about and put effort into, deliver good content and be consistent. And I think
Mhm.
be innovative.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's easier said than done. I think the main issue is that if you do this separate from any other part of your strategy, I don't think it's going to work. There
No.
has to be a, I think there has to be a complete mindset shift inside the company where they really want to build. I know it sounds a cliche by now, but build a community really where they are becoming something of a media company.
Yes.
So in
Well,
my
you
framework, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you talked about it before that basically, we in a small entrepreneurship or a small business, you need to build a media arm. And the live streaming needs to be a component of your greater marketing strategy. The useful thing is that we're sitting here live streaming right now, but we could cut up clips of the show later and use it in various different multimedia platforms. And I think you do the same. You will put this in an audio only format, right? So you can
Mhm.
have a podcast, you can cut up clips, put it on YouTube later. So you can kind of use a live stream as a foundation to do other marketing stuff.
Absolutely. And I think when you have these foundations laid, namely that you have dedicated part of your resources, even if that's just half an FTE, who is creating content and distributing it effectively on the social media platforms where your clients congregate. If you do that, you start with normal videos. Doesn't have to be live streaming right from the start. You have a decent email practice where you regularly stay in touch with people, and you give also those who engage with you on LinkedIn, for example, a good reason to sign up to your email. So you have this kind of multi-channel approach in terms of your content. And then once you have that in place, you also include live streaming, and that could be for simple purposes just like this: talking to somebody who is knowledgeable about their area, and then taking that clip and chopping it up into shorter clips, taking the long thing and publishing it on a podcast, for example, or on video on YouTube, and then taking the clips for short, bite-sized snippets on LinkedIn, and simply doing that on a regular basis, interviewing somebody, but also taking questions from
Yeah.
others, right? You could, for go ahead.
It brings up a good point, and I forgot to mention it. I should say that if people are, I feel like this is also important. If people are watching now, and you hear us say something that's interesting that you want to comment on, you should feel free. Don't be discouraged to chat, write a message, because
Exactly.
that's how we're gonna build this. We're gonna make this engaging and interesting is by getting input from you viewers. So please don't
Exactly.
hesitate. I think that that's also kind of a problem in the B2B space is basically the issue I see is big. The big one is building the community. So, and I think people that are watching sometimes in more business-oriented people are hesitant to, voice their opinion, to chime in on the conversation. But this is kind of what needs to happen to start fostering that community. So this is one point that I would like to raise.
Interesting. Yeah. So be a good member of an audience as well, and good things will happen to you when you want to build that audience, right? So when you are on other people's live streams, do make sure you send something encouraging their way. Do make sure that you ask a good question if it happens. I think many people in B2B have this hesitancy because they don't want to appear stupid, right? Because it's not just them, it's them representing a company, and they worry that what if they look stupid? That's why they wouldn't interact. Which makes it, I think, all the harder for B2B.
Just gotta jump over that hurdle. You need to just. I think that's why you see a lot of success. Twitch has a younger demographic, people that have grown up on the internet, and they're just used to chatting and putting their opinions out there, and so it's much easier for them to. Get a lively chat going, even if you watch someone with 5 or 10 viewers, they have somewhat of a rapport going already. So this is one thing. This is one of the main challenges I see in terms of live streaming B2B content, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think if you want to start, I think there's a couple of suggestions that I would have that I've seen other people do and that have also partially served me well. So first of all, I would suggest that you start usually doing it at the same time. It doesn't matter all that much. Nobody will put it in their calendar. But after 20 times, and if you deliver good content and people know that you're always on Wednesday at 3 p.m., that definitely will be better than if you just do it always ad hoc and haphazardly.
So people are excited for the next episode of Game of Thrones. They're waiting all week for it, right, or whatever. That's
exactly.
This is one of the first things I recommend to people that I work with is you need to set some sort of consistent schedule because it gives your audience something to look forward to.
Absolutely. The second thing is, it really is about the person who is on the live stream. And that doesn't have to mean that you need to be media trained or anything like that, but you need to have something interesting to say. I think many companies are delegating their content production to a junior person. And that tends to be a mistake, I think, because what your target audience wants to hear and who they want to hear from is a peer. You don't have to be the savviest speaker, but you have to know your stuff. And I think that when people are considering doing content and delegating it to a junior, they are putting somebody who is not a peer in front of their ideal target audience. And that cannot work, right? It can be, even if it's a charming presenter, they speak well, but if they don't really know, if they have not been in the client's shoes or have not at least walked a long time alongside them, they will not be good content providers. It really needs to be someone who knows the client inside out and who the client finds credible.
I have something to add. We can talk more about it later, but there are a few people on market that I think are doing good live streaming content. And one of those productions, they started with one host, one guy. He was just, they would do like panel discussions and interviews and stuff. And he told me that he found that when they added a co-host, the show became much better because they could spend some of the time interacting and engage among one another, and they could bounce a few ideas off different people. So this is an idea that maybe people can utilize. You don't necessarily have to have one person. Maybe you have one expert who's, kind of dry and plain, but knows his stuff. And you can have another person that's very charismatic and can kind of carry the show.
That's good. I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Good cop, bad cop, or competent, boring cop and less competent, but fun cop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, good. Can you recommend to our audience anyone who you've seen do this really well? For example, I immediately think of Shay Rowbottom and John Palmer, right? They're doing regular live streams and they're very engaging. I think to my taste, they're a little bit quite salesy, so they always try to peddle something, but it's generally there's this good content in there. Anybody else who comes to mind?
Well, yeah, I would say on that, I would definitely recommend that you do no sales in your live streaming. I think you and I have the same mind that you want this space to kind of be, as you say, like it's a pot. You want to cultivate the community and build this sense of like accepting and fitting in. The sales stuff can come later.
Mhm.
Um, who have I
Absolutely.
seen on the market doing good work? Well, here in Poland, there's a software consulting company called NetGuru. They're quite large. They operate internationally. They have clients such as Volkswagen, IKEA, Keller Williams, and they do a weekly live stream where they bring in team members from their firm to talk about new products they're developing or do Q&As. They're very tech-centric stuff, but they also welcome guests on the show. This is quite interesting, and they have a pretty good reception to this. But I think the best, and because my background is in law, in legal marketing, I think the best that I've seen best application of live streaming is by Deloitte Legal. Deloitte
Mhm.
Legal, in the past few years, I think in the past 2 years, they developed extremely successful morning show. Basically, is what it is. Uh, it originally started as just it's an inter office, so it's generally not broadcast publicly, but it is broadcast to all their offices worldwide. And it started as a sales program. So they would do weekly sales training, have some guests on, and it was targeted to the lawyers. But this program was so successful that it eventually, they're in their fourth season now, and I think they broadcast to over 900 people and 95 offices,
Wow.
95 countries. They've expanded not only to Deloitte Legal, but they cover topics in all professional services of Deloitte.
Mhm.
Uh, and they've had great success. I talked to my colleague he kind of founded this program, and they actually have success with lawyers generating sales as a result of this morning show.
Mhm. Okay.
So I would say that this is absolutely the top of the line. And I talked to him today actually, and I said, "Hey, John, do you see is anybody else on the market doing this?" He says, "I don't think so. I think we're really the only people. Maybe the other big four are doing some similar sort of trainings, but nobody really has a morning show going." So I
Mhm.
would say
Interesting.
that this is the forefront of this kind of B2B live streaming.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And what is the content on this morning show? Is just what you would normally expect in like a breakfast show, or what is it?
Exactly. They really try to emulate a morning talk show. So they have like the opening jingle. They do shoot in a production studio that they have in the Deloitte office in Prague. So they film it
Mhm.
out of Prague and broadcast from there. They
Mhm.
have, now that they've expanded to all professional services, they invite guests from various industries. I think last week they had some people from like the banking and finance industry in the Czech Republic on talking about various topics. So they started as kind of sales centric to kind of do sales training, but now they cover all business service topics.
Mhm. Great. Okay. So to summarize, that is more for for the corporate client. How about for the solopreneur or small company? What could we imagine doing there? I'm going to give you my take, what I think would be a good place to
Sure.
start, and you can chime in. What do you think people should do? So the first suggestion would be to put live streaming as one of the next steps in your marketing pot, so to speak, right? So you start with good content on LinkedIn, you add an email list, you make sure that you do great videos and maybe a podcast long format, right? And you can then start with live streaming where you just interview interesting people who have something to say. It's quite meta, but this is effectively what we're exactly doing now. You told me that you're really interested and knowledgeable in the topic of live streaming, so let's talk about it. I think it could be valuable for our audience. Simply record it as a long form piece of content that you're then going to put on YouTube and podcast in its entirety, and chop up the clips and then use that for your LinkedIn, for your regular LinkedIn and Facebook, wherever else you are active, daily content. And as far as other possible content, what I've seen work really well is that if you simply make it into a Q&A where you simply take questions that you've heard in the market, and these really should be stuff that you've heard that people are struggling with. I use Sometimes when I do these Q&A type shows, I simply take what my clients are struggling with. And this is, by the way, most of the content that I put out on LinkedIn is this, that I summarize their key challenges and then I simply answer it. Just like I would have answered to my clients, but that is in a private setting, I answer it publicly. And it could also be, you can have on your website a place where people can submit questions if they want to. You can use a tool called SpeakPipe that you implement on your website, where people just hit the record button and the voice message lands in your inbox. So if it's not the interview format, you can also do a very simple Q&A, anything that your audience is struggling with. Most important of all, this beats all the tactical consideration, is content quality. You need to have really a unique perspective on your market, on your entire industry, and really have the attitude of wanting to serve your clients, not wanting to sell to them. I 100% agree with you that during the live stream, trying to sell, it's not the best idea.
It's not attractive.
Yeah, it's just not attractive, I think. So anything to add to these points for solopreneurs and small companies?
Yeah, I would say that, having the kind of like a podcast live show where you invite people to have discussion is great. I think this is good, but I would try to think outside the box and come up with some new concepts of type of content you could put out there just to stay fresh. For example, I don't know, me and my friend were talking, he's an engineer, and we said something like, maybe we could do a show where you invite some other engineers on the show. We have a case study. We try to problem solve, come up with solutions for the case, and see where we go. And of course, we take interaction from the audience at the same time. Do something like this. Maybe we could demo the software that you're working on. Show me how that you're building this one thing. These are the other types of things that you could do. I think that's one of the things that the B2B solo entrepreneurs, even large corporations, need to overcome with live streaming is expand a little bit beyond merely the podcasts and panel discussions. For sure, there's a lot of stuff out there that you just have to ask yourself, go to your team. If you work alone, maybe talk to your friends, even your clients, and say, what are you interested in hearing? Because probably there's something that you can adapt to doing live. I know that you've done it. That's what you did, for example, with your planning, your yearly planning. So this is, for example, great. It's something to mix up.
Oh, and actually, that's a very good reminder. Thank you for that, because what I found really helpful there, as opposed to simply recording it as a video and putting it out as a podcast, if you put a stake in the ground and you say, okay, on Wednesday, 3 p.m., I'm just going to do it, then you actually have to do it end to end. You are live. People are listening to you. People are watching you. You have to finish this. And especially when it comes to anything like strategic planning, that is easily... It's very tempting to delay it. Oh yeah, I have more burning issues. But it's important. It's one of those important but not urgent things. If you can force yourself to do it, live streaming is really, really good for that. And on that point, this strategic planning session was a very successful live stream. I've had a lot of views on it on YouTube, and people have actually messaged me about it, that they found it very helpful. So exactly, that's kind of a way to do it outside of the box.
I would really stress also for small businesses, solopreneurs, that if you want to make live streaming a success, you need to invest a lot of time into building your community, and you need to find a way to do that. The easiest way that I can recommend is setting up a Discord server. It's a free tool. It's basically a free chat room that you have control over. I don't want to say you can moderate, or better, you can curate, but it allows your audience to congregate somewhere offline and keep the conversation going. And you can pop in there from time to time.
Okay, so I don't know much about Discord. Could you give me a rundown of how this works? And when you say offline, what do you mean offline? It's online.
It's online, but I mean offline, when you are not broadcasting your live stream, they're continuing the conversation, or they're continuing, to be in one community when you're off air. Basically, Discord server, if you had to explain it to a lay person or non-tech savvy person, it's like a chat room. You basically create a profile, a username, you add an avatar, it can be your picture or whatever, and you join a server, and it's curated. There's different rooms you can sit in, so you different chat with people, and yeah, it's something like this. It's like a chat room.
Slack channel. What's the difference between that and a Slack
exactly
channel?
it's no difference. It's just Slack was more marketed towards the IT crowd. Discord was marketed toward gamers, but I have seen channels. I sit in channels for business communities. I sit in channels for consumer goods, products, things like this. Even I know that my friends sit in channels to find deals on clothing and consumer goods and stuff like this. Buying products. So there's all sorts of applications.
Interesting. So I normally recommend some of my clients who are kind of at this place where they can start building a community. I recommend them to start a Facebook group. I think this is probably complementary. I don't think these two things are necessarily exclusive vis-a-vis each other. I think a Facebook community is more Facebook group is more suitable to add slightly longer form content, to publish a video, to add a bit more depth. Whereas a Discord server or a Slack channel is more something truly conversational, where you just add like a little bit of value, like 2 lines, 3 lines, just something thought-provoking, and then you let the discussion go. Is that right? Would you see it similarly?
Absolutely. So for example, I can just share like in a gaming Discord server, or basically it's the Discord server of a person who streams a particular game. And what he does, for example, he of course creates his content, puts videos on YouTube, and he has a specific channel in his Discord server. When he uploads a video to YouTube, there is an automated announcement that says, hey, there's a new video on YouTube, go check it out. And of course, people watch it, and later they come to another channel where they chat, hey, we saw this in the video, and they have an ongoing conversation where he's not even present, but his followers or his audience is talking about the content that he's published. So this would be an example.
Great, excellent. Another thing that I just thought of, which is actually going to be my next podcast episode, is when you have somebody who, for whichever reason, could be a potential client, but for whichever reason will not become a client, but they still want your help, that you do a free consulting session with them. But it's live, right? They agree that it's live, and there you can really show off your skills. You can actually go and problem solve for them, can give them some really good advice, and that makes for great clips. And
I love it. It's great.
So people can see how you work.
It's fantastic. That's a great idea, actually. I think.
Yeah,
that's super. If you can get the right person, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have this regularly where, for example, I have somebody in a low-income country who normally, if they were in Western Europe or the United States, that they would be candidates to working with me. But somebody in a low-income country isn't really able to pay my fee. And so there I say, let's just do a 1-hour session where I just give you as much value as I possibly can, because the problems that they face are exactly the same that my clients would face. Right. Sure. So I can do a session with them. Awesome. Cool. Good. So I think we gave some really specific advice. Do check out the Deloitte. Where can people find this Deloitte channel? What is it? Just Deloitte on LinkedIn?
It's private. It's inter-office, but they do.
Yeah, sorry, you said it's okay.
But from time to time, they do public broadcasts where they do some panel discussions, and they invite people to participate. They have various topics. So I would say tune into the Deloitte Legal LinkedIn page. They make announcements there, or you can find it on their website.
Awesome. Yeah. Good. And David, if people want to get in touch with you, who should that be, and where can they find you?
You can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I will share my LinkedIn profile. You can get in touch with me there. I also have a website, www.followthecrown.net.
And who do you work with, and what kind of problems do you solve for them?
I work with mostly people in the legal industry, and I focus on solving marketing issues. Let's say I add some marketing magic where they may be lacking. I find a lot that, well, I will just say that the modern lawyer, of course, he needs to be a master of law, but probably a lot of time needs to be invested into becoming a master of business development, marketing, and relationship building. And this is what I help people with.
Awesome. Excellent. And you do that for clients, not just in Poland, I presume, right? But worldwide.
Worldwide.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for sharing. And I look forward to being in touch with you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox Grant. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Montreal girls in the tail end of winter. Caffeine burns, wide awake dreams and color. Blood on my head.